3 years for Cohen is serious. But it's not even close to the average federal sentence. Commentators on special counsel Robert Mueller's investigation often refer to possible prison sentences for targets as lengthy, and, of course, avoided with a presidential pardon. The federal judge in New York who sentenced Michael Cohen, a one-time lawyer and fixer to President Donald Trump, to 3 years in prison for lying to Congress, campaign finance violations, bank fraud and tax evasion, said he was giving Cohen a significant term of imprisonment. That set off far more conversation about federal jail time and sentencing guidelines than typically happens on a Wednesday in mid-December. The average prison term for all federal prisoners is 55.4 months, which is more than 50% longer than Cohen's 36-month sentence. That was for 2014, the latest year for which detailed figures are, but the disparities go deeper than that. The average sentence for drug offenses in the federal system is 77.6 months. The average sentence for black prisoners is 82.7 months, for white prisoners, it is 46.9 months. By that standard, in the Mueller probe or its satellites face what can legitimately be described as a lengthy term. Paul Manafort, Trump's former campaign manager, who was convicted of financial fraud and faces a recently expanded list of charges including obstruction of justice and operating as an unregistered foreign agent, may be an exception when he is sentenced. Cohen, of course, wasn't charged with violent crimes or drug law violations. But prosecutors in New York recommended a sentence of 43 to 63 months, indicating that prosecutors said Cohen also committed serious crimes which enriched himself. The judge who sentenced Cohen Wednesday echoed that and added a unique admonition. He said Cohen's crimes implicated a far more insidious harm to our democratic institutions. Even with all of that, some consider Cohen's term substantial. "You aren't going to get me to say that 3 years isn't a big deal," said Kara Gooch, who oversees federal advocacy at the Sentencing Project, a nonprofit that advocates criminal justice reform. "Families grow older, loved ones die, milestones happen and it is real punishment to be taken from the community. But is this representative of what happens to so many other people? In many ways, no." In court, and in letters submitted before Cohen's Wednesday sentencing hearing, Cohen's lawyers argued that his decision to fundraise for St. Jude Children's Research Hospital, Operation Smile, a scholarship funded his children's Manhattan private school and other good deeds within his social circle should mitigate his punishment. They argued for no jail time at all. The judge's response was that of a man who has heard it before from rich defendants. The letters submitted reveal a man dedicated to his family and generous with his time and money to help people in his own orbit, said U.S. District Judge William Pauley III. Of course that kind of generosity is laudable. But somewhere along the way Mr. Cohen appears to have lost his moral compass and sought instead to monetize his newfound influence. The federal prison system holds, making family visits. However, the prison where Cohen asked and the judge agreed to recommend that Cohen be jailed sits just 70 miles from the New York City area where his family lives. Cohen's likely prison, Otisville, also. Cohen appears to have fared better than those convicted of similar and completely different crimes. Federal prisons, like state prisons, house a population that is, and poor. The number of people spending time in them has shifted with the nation's politics. In 1980, there were just 24,000 people in federal prison. But in 2016, that figure had reached 192,000 people. If current trends continue, meaning an additional reform does not follow, 1 of every 3 black men and 1 in every 6 Latino men will spend time in prison in their lifetimes. Right now, almost half, 49%, of all federal inmates are nonviolent criminals serving time on drug charges. There are disparities at every stage of the criminal justice system, Gooch said. In who is stopped, who is questioned, who is arrested, charged, convicted and sent to prison as well as how long the sentencing guidelines say they have to remain. Reforms proposed include sentences including, potentially, Cohen. Even in the absence of that, many feel Cohen is already operating on easy. On Twitter, the Reverend Jesse Jackson pointed out that many young people sit in county jails for years awaiting trial on marijuana charges and don't get the mercy and consideration that left Cohen with a 3-year bid in connection with far more serious chicanery. Michael Cohen was sentenced to 3 years for trying to steal the country. Scores of youth sit in Cook County Jail for 3 to 5 years in pretrial detention waiting for a court date for petty crimes and pot. The youth deserve mercy and consideration too. Others put it more plainly, Michael Cohen would have gotten more time if he had an eighth of weed on him and a better tan. How come Michael Cohen does not have to report to prison until March? My clients, all poor, never got that professional courtesy. They were dragged out of the courtroom in handcuffs, shoelaces taken away etc., Lucky if could turn and wave to family in courtroom, just asking. One of the more ironic forces for criminal justice reform is a group of politically connected operatives, aides and former elected officials who have spent time incarcerated under the terms of the sentencing guidelines that they wrote. A lot of them, they are white men, Gooch said. They are college-educated and have a fair amount of privilege and notoriety. They've come out profoundly changed by what they experienced during their incarceration. They have decided this is something they are going to work on. Among the primary White House supporters of criminal justice reform, son of Charles Kushner, after pleading guilty to illegal campaign contributions, tax evasion and witness tampering. The elder Kushner's sentence was 2 years. Janelle Ross is a reporter for NBC Blocks who writes about race, politics and social issues.